Good afternoon. My name is Phil Andrew. I am a former special agent of the FBI for 21 years, and now I am an expert in violence prevention. I work as a consultant providing expertise to organizations and how they can protect themselves, as well as schools and individuals. I've been in private practice as a consultant now for 3.5 years, and I'm also a survivor of gun violence. I was injured in potentially America's first school shooting that took place in Winnetka, Illinois, where a deranged person who should not have had access to firearms amassed firearms and ammunition and launched an attack on an elementary school in Winnetka, Illinois in 1988. She shot 6 second graders at point blank range, killing one instantly and severely injuring the others. 5 children survived that. In the course of that assailant's escape from the school, they crashed their car near my childhood home, and a hostage situation ensued, including my mother, father, and I. We were able to negotiate the release of my parents, but I was shot in an attempt to disarm this person. I was struck in the right side of my chest, both of my lungs, my esophagus, my stomach, my pancreas, and my pericardium, the membrane around my heart, was scarred, and I narrowly escaped with my life. After several weeks of recovering in the hospital, I joined then Congressman John Porter in a call for increased regulation on firearms. And at the time, we were just asking for a waiting period and basically implementation of the Brady bill, which would have expanded background checks. And we are now 34 years from that incident taking place. And we are still asking for some of the same tools that we need to prevent mass violence, school violence, and interpersonal and other forms of firearm violence that plague this country. As a professional, I ran crisis and resolution and hostage negotiation teams for the FBI. And in those circumstances, we always looked at crises in 3 ways: before, during, and after. And we did everything that we could to prevent crises from happening in the first place by moving on intelligence and using the tools we had available to us to prevent terrorism and violence from happening. But we were limited with the tools that we had. That has changed over 34 years. But now we are asking Congress to implement very reasonable regulations that the vast majority of the country, and certainly gun owners, of which I am one of, are asking for increased background checks that include mental health and include the roughly 7,000 agencies that are not fully reporting their information to the federal government for the instant background check, so that there are fewer loopholes, that every gun transaction be required to have a background check. I also now, as a professional, am working with a lot of individuals and organizations that are threatened by violence. It might originate from the internet, on social media. It might be a threat that is communicated in some way to a school. And the first thing we do in terms of a threat assessment is understand the mental state of the individual and immediately assessing their access to firearms. So it's critical that every state have the ability or a federal incentive for those states to begin to explore the ability to remove firearms from dangerous situations. That is the number one thing that anybody that is providing a threat assessment to a school, to a workplace, to a community is going to need, is the ability to remove dangerous weapons from folks that have demonstrated a threat to themselves and to others. As a father, I have children in schools and remain concerned that we have not done everything that we can to protect our children. And I know that as a practitioner, as an FBI agent, a crisis negotiator, and running response teams, that when police are called to an active shooter situation, that it's already worst case scenario, that we know that there is going to be carnage. It's a question of how quickly we can get there and mitigate or save some of the folks that are injured. More needs to be done to stop dangerous people from getting weapons in the first place. And background checks, red flag laws, and increasing the age on which children would access firearms is critical. Third is over 80% of the firearms that are used in school violence travel from home. And it is very important, and I know this, and I know many of my fellow gun owners appreciate this, that gun safety is critical. It is a dangerous instrument, and it has to be treated with respect and care and training and vigilance. And that's why everybody that has a firearm needs to make sure that it's secured and it's locked up, and that children do not have access to the firearm. So public education, incentives, federal incentives, and communication, as well as communication with our state and local partners. We really need to make clear that if we're going to communicate to parents with children, child age or school age, about the allergies and about the threat of peanuts in creating life-threatening allergy conditions with school, we also need to be talking about firearms, and that we need to communicate from the school level and the community level that guns in the home are creating, in 80% of the cases, the risk of a gun going from home to school and being used in mass violence. I implore our Congress and our leaders to do everything they can to prevent firearm violence and immediately enact the framework that exists, and continue to study this issue and supplement that framework with data-driven, evidence-based information that we know prevents firearm violence. Thank you.